All right, we've been listening to our local affiliate there in Oklahoma and watching here as a dangerous tornado is being formed over northeastern Tulsa. Chief Meteorologist Eric Fisher from our CBS station WBZ in Boston is tracking the severe weather, and he joins us now by phone. Eric, just kind of tell us about the weather elements that are happening here. We've seen debris twisting in the air. They've talked about golf ball size hail falling here, and they're saying that this is a small tornado, but a tornado nonetheless.
Where it actually hits, and if you end up seeing a tornado come through your town, obviously it's a much bigger deal, really not dependent on the size of it itself. But what we're watching is pretty violent atmosphere today. We've got a storm that's developing in the middle of the country. In Oklahoma in particular, that area is not under a tornado watch, but a severe thunderstorm watch. So I wouldn't say it's a full surprise, but they didn't have a tornado watch out on this. We've been watching a dry line move across the state. That dry line is right through the middle of the state right now, right about through Norman and Oklahoma City. The dry line, Christine, is a separation of the very dry air that's just off to the west and the very humid air that's just off to the east. This tornado forming in the more juicy atmosphere out ahead of it.
Now, we saw earlier, like, it was almost as if there was just this wall of a cloud, and then you could see the funnel clouds sort of forming there in various areas, and it would grow, and then it would retract, and sometimes it would jump. This is all, and now it's in a residential area as well. I know that this is somewhat common for the folks that live in this area, but talk about what it feels like in these type of conditions to be there on the ground.
I mean, it's both frustrating and terrifying when you look at it, because you've got a storm, in this particular case, a storm that's been kind of, like you said, oscillating back and forth. We've seen a very strong supercell thunderstorm, and the whole storm itself is rotating. We've seen that wall cloud, which is the part of the cloud that's hanging down out of the main thunderstorm, and at times we've seen that funnel cloud come all the way down and extend to the surface. That's your tornado. When it touches down to the ground, that's when you have a tornado that's on the ground. But it's been bouncing back and forth a little bit, and so if you're in one of these areas, you're heeding the warnings. Tornado warning comes out, you're getting to a safe shelter, lowest level of the house, basement if you have it, and you're waiting till these storms move through, and you're hoping for the best, that it stays out into a more open territory.
And really, it's that flying debris that's a main concern too, right, Eric?
Well, a lot of the times, a lot of injuries from tornadoes can happen from the debris that's being tossed by it and not by the tornado itself. Obviously, debris can fall well outside of the actual tornado. In some cases, hundreds of yards, if not more than a quarter mile away from that storm, you've still got debris flying around. So when you have strong winds, you have projectiles in the air. That's why you're telling everyone to get to that interior room at the lowest level of the house, away from the windows, because you don't want any of that debris coming through one of the windows and potentially harming somebody.
We're seeing some flashes of light here from these live pictures from our affiliate, and I can't say for sure whether if it's lightning or maybe if it's even transformers that could be exploding, but we definitely see some rotation here on the ground, Eric. I'm not sure if you can see the pictures as I'm talking to you, but this is definitely, it looks to be in more of a residential area. This is the start of tornado season. How does El Nino affect all of this?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of the time during El Nino winters, we can see a rise in severe weather reports along the Gulf Coast states in particular, and that's more into your January, February, your March time frame. Now that we're heading toward April, we're getting closer into that typical tornado season that really ramps up, culminating in May and June. Now, typically in a big El Nino year, you might get a little bit of a break in the early spring, and you get a backloaded severe season. So it ends up being busier at the end of spring, but that doesn't mean you can't have these outbreaks of severe weather from time to time. And from today into tonight into tomorrow, we're expecting more storms like this to produce large hail and tornadoes, and just urging everyone to stay weather aware and respect the weather, because we're going to have some dangerous storms over these next 48 hours.
If you're just joining us, we're looking at live pictures here from the Tulsa area of Oklahoma, particularly in Nowata and Owasso, where there are now tornadoes on the ground. You can see here in some of these pictures, I know they're a bit murky, but you can see some flashes of light. You can also see the funnel clouds actually hit the ground, and that rotation of extreme winds that the local meteorologists there in Oklahoma were describing 75 miles per hour or more. in the rotation of the wind. They're seeing debris twisting in the air. They're dealing with hail. They're dealing with thunderstorms. And this is the start of tornado season. Eric, can you talk a little bit more about this particular storm over the area? And is it a slow-moving system? Are the folks in this area going to have some relief here in the next half an hour or so?
Well, we're under kind of a round one situation right now. So the severe storms that we have firing up at this point, they're going to start to track a little farther eastward as we head through the course of the night over toward places in Missouri and into Arkansas, Louisiana, and eventually over toward areas of Mississippi and Alabama during the overnight hours. And then we're going to get a little bit of a break tomorrow morning, and then as the atmosphere refuels, we start heating it back up again. We'll get another round of severe storms tomorrow. The good news is tomorrow's storms will be well removed from where we're seeing them right now. So Oklahoma, after tonight, those storms will track east for most of Texas. They're going to track east. The main area we'll watch tomorrow is around the Mississippi Valley, especially the mid and lower Mississippi valleys. That's where we could see some more tornadoes, certainly some very large hail expected tomorrow.
We want to show our viewers here some new video that was posted on Twitter. I believe it was near the airport. We're going to show that as I ask this next question to you, Eric. You mentioned that it is moving east, and there is the video. You can see some fuel trucks there in the background, and then that pretty good funnel cloud that you can clearly see reaching towards the ground from that cloud wall up above. It's dark, it's gray, and you can hear people in the background talking about it, and the sirens also going off there to alert locals that they must take cover. You mentioned that this storm is moving east overnight. Will it carry the same strength, or will it weaken as it moves, Eric?
Well, this individual storm or the storm system itself?
This individual one here.
Well, the life cycles of these storms, it's very tough to predict. I mean, that's a big forecasting challenge. How long will a tornado stay on the ground? How long can a supercell hold together and keep its form? Certainly, this could be something that we're dealing with for another 30 minutes to an hour. It's really tough to say exactly when it's going to run out of fuel. Christine, just starting to get some damage pictures in here. I'm kind of scrolling through Twitter and watching the live feed and seeing all the new information come in. Looks like in Catoosa, Oklahoma, we've got some roof damage so far being reported out of this storm. It's moving east at 30 miles per hour, so it's not the fastest moving tornado that you're going to see. It's actually moving at a relatively slow clip. And so good news is it's not a rain-wrapped tornado here. We still have some daylight, so people are getting their warnings. They can see it coming, and hopefully they're getting to a safe spot. Yeah,
it's really remarkable to watch that, to see. It's almost as if there's like a line drawn between where the clouds start and then suddenly like clear blue sky.
Yeah, this is, one of your more classic-looking supercells. You've got your formation of the storm where you can see the whole storm itself spinning. You've got that lowering of the cloud base. That's your wall cloud hanging down out of the storm. And then you've got your tornado extending down from that wall cloud. And all around it, you're surrounded by light. And we've seen some really dramatic images from the chopper there of the sun in the background going down. It's fire red and backlighting the whole storm itself. So the chasers are getting a really good look at this, and hopefully anyone in the path is seeing that video and knowing they have a serious situation moving toward them.
Eric, did you mention earlier in our conversation that there weren't tornado watches in this particular area?
In this particular area, northeast Oklahoma, there are severe thunderstorm watches that are out for this evening. And a severe thunderstorm watch doesn't mean there isn't a potential of tornadoes, but it does certainly doesn't have the same connotation as a tornado watch, right? If you see that out. We do have those in northeastern Texas right now, into northern Louisiana, also southern eastern parts of Arkansas and northwestern Mississippi, as well as the Memphis area. They're all under tornado watches right now.
So in a situation like this, what's the biggest challenge for a meteorologist?
For a meteorologist, it's just keeping your cool. It's making sure the right information is getting out to the people who need it and make sure they stay out of harm's way. And it's just staying with an evolving situation. A lot of times you're watching the local news, and they're giving their warnings, and they're going to be on for a long time. And sometimes the tornado's not going to be on the ground. Sometimes it will be. People just need to be patient and know that things are always changing with these storms. The tornado can come or go really at a moment's notice. And the bottom line is that everyone's just working to make sure that the best information is getting out there.
In your career, have you had the experience of being in a tornado or being around one at least?
Around one, yes.
Yeah.
I can say that certainly it's a frightening experience, especially if you're in a part of the country where you don't see them too frequently. A lot of people outside Tulsa they are all too familiar with hearing the tornado sirens going off in town. That can be a very eerie feeling for sure. But when you have tornadoes in this part of the country in particular, people are so familiar with the process. They kind of know what to do. They know the right steps. And hopefully we don't have any sad stories to share by the end of tonight.
Is it true that it sounds somewhat like a freight train?
Well, you've got that big of a pressure change. You've got that strong of the wind. Certainly, it's a very loud freight train type of sound that comes along with these tornadoes if you're close enough to be, in that sound range.
So they were describing, the local meteorologist there, this as an EF0 or an EF1 tornado with winds of 70 miles per hour or more. I'm sorry to not be an expert on this, but what type of damage? I mean, is this the type of wind that could just rip a roof right off and take down power lines and poles?
Certainly. Now, the thing here is that I've seen this happen a few times over the last couple of years. You really can't tell if it's an EF0, EF1, EF2 until you do a damage survey. The whole EF scale, which is the Enhanced Fujita scale, is based on damage assessments. Basically, a crew has to go out and see what the storm did, and that's how we figure out exactly how strong those winds were. You can kind of guesstimate based on radar signatures how fast the wind speeds are going, but you don't know for sure until you get really on the ground. That being said, winds over 70 miles per hour, certainly enough to take the top of a roof off, to throw a car, to bring down power lines. There's a lot of power in even the lower-end tornado.
Wow, we're actually seeing some explosions. It could be just power transformers and such there in the background. But, as we're talking about this and what these winds are capable of, we're seeing it here in these pictures on Periscope that we're airing right now. And you see flashes of light. It also got very dark all of a sudden, where there is no sunlight there in the distance.
Well, we're at the 8 o'clock hour now, and the sun's going down, and then it becomes a lot more dangerous once we get past sunset, because your chasers, a lot of them are not going to chase anymore. Some of them will stay on the road, but it's a lot more dangerous proposition when you don't have any daylight to see that tornado that's coming through. And in general, once you get into the overnight, a lot of people, maybe if they're far away from the Tulsa area, they're kind of down the road from these storms, you get into your nighttime routine. Some people go to bed. If you don't have a weather radio, it's tougher to get those warnings out. So we always say those nighttime tornadoes are the most dangerous, and some of these could last into the overnight. And Christine, the latest tornado warning here is until 8:15 Central Time for central Rogers County for that tornado that's moving east at 30.
All right, so if you're just joining us here, we have Eric Fisher, the chief meteorologist from WBZ-TV in Boston, and he is helping us and walking us through what is happening here in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area. They have active tornadoes on the ground, and you can see here from the pictures that it is very, very dark now in this area. Just a few minutes ago, we did see some sunlight there on the horizon, but now it is definitely a very dark, dark atmosphere, and that wall of cloud that was so clear before is hard to see from some of these pictures. But we've been seeing transformers blowing up in the background. We've seen lightning and definitely debris being turned up in these tornadoes that are forming there.